What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Mythic Conversations. Thank you all for joining me this evening. Thank you for all the comments already. I love that I'm actually sitting here before the show starts, and I do read the comments, and I'm seeing everyone say hello and greetings from Mexico, and everybody's just getting ready for the show. So I'm super excited about that. Let me kick it off. Welcome to Mythic Conversations, the weekly show where we talk about all things Legions. As always, I am your host, Jeremy Gerard. I'm a Mythic Legions collector and customizer, and I also have the distinct privilege, not going to do it, not going to mess up, of being the director of sales and marketing for Four Horsemen Studios. Super excited. If you watched last week, I made that announcement that as of next week, I will be full-time with the studio. Really excited for the cool stuff we have coming for you. If you want to check out more of my work, however, that I do as a fan of Mythic Legions that I've been doing for the last 7 years, you can certainly do that. Let me get my banner here. That's best place to look at that is at Mythic Customs on Instagram. And I just realized that I was having that entire conversation with myself off screen because I forgot to stop sharing. Awesome. So we're off to a wonderful start this evening. Did my entire intro with the banner that starts the show on. So very cool. Good start. But we do have a cool show tonight. I'm excited for the conversation. We're going to talk about versatility in custom parts. And if you can see, I've got paints out. We're going to do some live painting on the air because I feel like being creative this evening. Before we do that, let me talk about the news. What we do every week on this show, we kind of kick off with the news. And we also have a conversation. There is a chat. My computer's right here. I can see the chat there. So if you have questions along the way, hit me up in that chat and we will talk. News, things that are going on. So obviously, if you caught the Four Horsemen O'Clock show earlier today, you saw the fun announcement of the Krampus ugly sweater and the red Krampus t-shirt, both of which are available from Retro Rags Limited. So really kind of fun. If you remember back in December when we launched the Figura Obscura line and the Krampus figure, Retro Rags did a Krampus t-shirt that had that really cool artwork from Nate Barch on it. Same artwork, but altered for the red Krampus. So instead of it being the black version of Krampus's face, it's a red version. That t-shirt is actually an item that they fill rather quickly. 7 to 10 business days for most U.S. residents. They'll get that. Obviously, if you're outside of the contiguous U.S., it'll take a little bit longer, but that's an item that they are producing now. That order goes until April 1st. So if you want one of those shirts, they come in black, they come in red, they come in green. But the cool thing, the really cool thing, not that the shirt's not cool, it is, but the surprise thing was the reveal of the Krampus ugly sweater. This is actually a knitted sweater that they're going to be doing, assuming enough pre-orders are placed. They need 150 pre-orders. It's actually a really good price. It's $54.99. So for a hand-knitted sweater, that's not outrageous at all, especially a novelty sweater or sweater like that. It's not a sweatshirt, it's a sweater, hand-knitted sweater. Retro Rags Limited, you can pick that up, 150 people. Those orders have to be in by, I believe it's like mid-July or something, and they will be shipping by November of this year, so you'll have it for the holidays. Other stuff happening. I know everyone is asking about All-Stars 5. We've heard you. We know you want news. There's a plan. We're not just going to say, oh, everyone wants to hear about it. Let's release the information about that. Everyone wants to hear news about everything. Trust the plan. Before you know it, we'll be talking about All Stars 5. So stay tuned. Events. Cool things are coming up. I know a lot of you have been talking about the Toy Atlanta event that's happening down in Atlanta. A number of cool people are going to be there, including guests I've had on my show a number of times, like Nikki Nicole Cheney and Walter Hagen and Eric Miller. I saw Eric LeBron in the chat, and you were in my head, Eric. Wrong, Eric. Eric Miller will be there. And those are just a few. There's a bunch of cool people that are going to be down there doing kind of a little mini Mythic Legion show. Also, ZoloCon. So ZoloCon is coming up not this weekend, but next weekend, March 5th and 6th. That is in Pennsylvania. I will actually be at that one with Four Horsemen Studios. It's my first full week as an employee, as a full-time employee. So I'm super excited to be there. I know a number of people are going to be coming out for that. Walter Hagen is flying in for that one as well. So you'll see Walter there. All my buddies from Wolf King Customs, they're going to have a table there showing off some stuff. Anthony Hausiel from Toy Forge, Patrick Boyle, they're going to be there. Even Lord Stephen Bishotti is flying in from Michigan to be a part of the show. So it is going to be a blast. Super looking forward to that. That's on Saturday, March 5th and Sunday, March 6th. So if you're in the area, zolocon.com. I'll be there. Come and say hi. So those events are coming up. Looking forward to that. And actually a little bit further out at the end of March, the last weekend is ToyCon New Jersey, which once again, I'll be there as well with the studio. Sales going on. Wolf King Customs just wrapped up their sale. LegionsShop has a big sale drop coming up this Saturday. So that's the 26th. Big sale drop starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And that's actually some of the stuff we're going to look at today. So I've been painting like a madman. I've been working on a bunch of cool custom parts, a number of which are going to be available in this coming LegionsShop sale drop. There's a couple of them that I want to look at tonight. One of them that I actually worked on with a couple artists, and one of them that I had nothing to do with, that Brian Burke recently submitted to LegionsShop to sell through there. But both of them provide kind of the basis of what I want to talk about tonight, and that is versatility in custom parts. How cool it is to be able to take these parts and paint them in different ways. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I've been doing with my ghoul heads and with the, I don't know how to say it, but the tiger-like mask head from Brian Burke. And then we're going to paint some live on the air tonight. So that's the plan for this evening. Let me check out the chat and see what people have saying. Walter telling us that Nate is making new Cabal art because he was commenting on my shirt, my Cabal shirt. Hells yeah, wear this with pride. I love this shirt. It's so comfy. This is actually one that Wolf King Customs did, and they used the super soft material. I'm a wicked baby when it comes to t-shirts. I like the super, super soft things. I've gotten back far enough in the comments now where I get people like Anthony Hausiel telling me that he can't see my face. Would have been nice if I would have realized that while that was happening. And then Nate Strong said, we have the distinct privilege of only hearing you. The reason for that, by the way, it's fine, kind of funny, is so I have my computer right here where everything's on the screen. And then I have the camera set up over here. The camera is usually right behind the screen, so I can kind of see them both. But so I can get this position here today, I have the camera away from the screen. And I'm actually looking at the screen on the camera, so my eyes are focused there and not here the entire time I'm talking, because this is weird and distracting. This makes more sense. But because I'm looking at the camera here, I thought it was on screen because all of the stuff I bring on screen doesn't get shown on the camera. So that's my excuse. Okay. People already announcing who that they want everyone to vote for. I'm seeing the campaign going strong already. Wait for it. You think you know, but you don't know. Okay, let's see. Walter saying, so Walter, were you the one saying that your birthday is April 1st? Yeah. That's awesome. April Fool's Day, baby. ZoloCon, let's go. Joe Vassapolo in the audience tonight. Backby in the audience was my guest last week. That was a great conversation. By the way, I got a number of you that reached out to me and said that you very much enjoyed the conversation with Joe last week. I enjoyed it as well. I look forward to having him back on in the future. That was very, very fun. So Star, this comment says, the figs are only part of the equation why Legions is awesome. The other part is the community, creative people doing creative things. That rocks. I agree completely. It's a community like no other. The amount of creativity in this community is incredibly infectious. And we're constantly seeing new people get into that side of the hobby. I was literally just talking today. Someone was reaching out to me. My friend Michael was reaching out to me to ask me for some painting tips. And he's just started painting. And the amount of people, by the way, that I see that I'm going to sound like Steven here, because Steven's always talking about how it's like we had to pay our dues for a while before we could paint the way we do today. I'm seeing more and more people who say, this is the first piece I've ever customized, I've ever painted, and it looks amazing, absolutely amazing. The one Michael showed me today was a simple axe, great first piece to start with. He totally killed it. Love seeing stuff like that. I have to think that it's all of the tutorials, it's all of the inspiration that people in the community share that help those who are new, who are getting into it, do it the right way and be able to succeed right from the beginning. So I love seeing that. I love seeing new people get creative and enjoy that side of the line as well. Okay, let's see. Vote Malleus, Walter's saying. I don't think Malleus is going to be in there this time, Walter. So I still literally have this on screen. Let's take that off as well. So let's look at some of the stuff I want to talk about tonight. Again, hit me up in the comments if you have any questions throughout the evening. So versatility in custom parts. This is something that, I'll be honest, when I first started making custom parts and using custom parts, I didn't really think much about. And I'm surprised I didn't, because versatility is literally core to the Mythic Legions line. It's funny, I was talking to someone today about Mythic Legions, someone who's not familiar with the line. And I had a couple figures with me, which I tend to do. When I go around and I'm going to meet people, I tend to pack a couple Mythic Legions figures in my bag with me. And it's not just because I like to have my toys with me, like my Benki. There is that too. But whenever people ask me what I do, I want to be able to explain to them about the company I work for and the toy line that I get to work with. And there's no better way to explain that to them than to take one out and show them. And when I pop pieces apart and swap them, it's incredibly, it's a great way to illustrate that, to illustrate the compatibility and interchangeability of these figures. And I was showing someone today, and I was actually using a Sir Gerard, and I was, showing how the legs, which are standard knight legs, have been around for 7 years. We got those first in the Mythic Legions 1.0 wave. However, the waist piece and the shoulder armor, those are brand new pieces that were just introduced in the last year or so, because they were first shown with the Earth Air wave, but we just got them in hand in 2021. And it made me, again, realize just how versatile this line is, that with different combinations of parts, different repaints on those parts, pieces can look so incredibly different. That is something that I didn't think about when I was first creating parts. But when I first got parts in hand, specifically, if you know my history, the Kitsune Fox parts were the first custom pieces that I helped develop. And I remember when I got those parts in hand, I just wanted a fox figure, so I painted it orange and white, like a typical fox. But as I started thinking about it, I was like, what other ways can I paint this? And I started looking up other kinds of foxes. So I found black foxes and Arctic foxes. So I immediately did a black version and I did a white version. And if you remember back then, when Wolf King Customs, almost 2 years ago now, it's almost 2 years to the month, When they did their first sale ever for those kitsune heads, they were available in orange, black, and white. That idea of being able to create parts that have versatility is something that I think is incredibly important and rewarding. And not all parts are going to have it. Not all parts in the Mythic Legions line are super versatile. Take the Krampus figure, which I know is not Mythic Legions, it's Figure Obscura, but bear with me. That sack that he uses, the switches that he holds, those are incredibly character specific. You're probably not going to see those reused a ton of times. In the Mythic Legions line, things like the Aether Blade or the Heaven's Brand or any of those, godly weapons, those are so specific to those characters that's unlikely that you're going to see them reused, I should say, with any frequency. Even some of the heads, right? You're not going to see Otho's head appear on a bunch of different characters because Otho is Otho, and that head is so unique and so distinct that it's not going to get a lot of reuse. So it's cool to have parts that are made for one very specific thing. They're made to be used or painted or presented in one way. But I love being able to present parts in different ways. And that's what we're going to look at tonight, starting with the ghoul. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen over the last week or so me sharing pictures of the ghoul. And I actually first teased this a couple weeks ago. I showed some pictures of the unpainted heads, and then I did a Saturday afternoon live stream where I was in the back room over here. I was actually painting some of them live. Those are the things that I've been painting, and we're going to paint a couple of them tonight in some different decos than I've shown. But let's show first what I'm talking about here. So when we created the ghoul, I really wanted two different versions of it. So the first version I wanted was this one here. So you can see this is the first ghoul that we did, and it's a closed mouth version. I almost wanted it to have kind of like a grin. When I looked at different reference materials for ghouls, honestly, they usually had noses. I didn't see a lot that had like the skull nose, but I really liked the look of not having the nose, the more skull-like feature. That worked for me. So we played around with some different things. I kind of came up with the style that I wanted. And this was actually sculpted by Tristan at Immortal Collections. And I've worked with Tristan on a couple parts now. There have been some projects we've worked on when we did the big demon skull, for instance. The demon skull was a lot of back and forth where I sketched it out, gave it to Tristan. He did some work, wasn't exactly what I wanted. So we had to go back and forth and make a bunch of changes to get it to where I wanted it. This was an example of a project where I gave Tristan what I wanted, and he just hit it out of the park first shot. Like literally, he showed it to me and I was like, I have no changes. Like, this is perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. The sculpture itself has an incredible amount of detail. All of the different, seeing like wrinkles and everything around the character's eyes. It's wonderful. Looks great. A lot of people, when they saw this picture, they were commenting on the eyes. They really like the eyes. Let you know a secret. It's super darn easy. This is actually a super easy head to paint. Okay, because some dry brushing totally works on this, as you're going to see tonight. The teeth are fairly easy to paint. They're all pretty defined. The eyes, all I did for these eyes was I just used some black paint to paint the actual eyes. They're kind of bulbous. They're kind of bulging, which provides a nice big canvas for you to paint on. That gloss effect, if you've checked out, I have a video here on my channel called How to Get That Wet Look. It's just like a little kind of gloss piece that you put on top of it, like a top coat that you paint on top. The only trick is let the underlying paint dry for at least 24 hours so you don't get bleed. But a little bit of that gives that shine effect that I put on the teeth and the eyes. Absolutely love that. So this was the first head. It's almost got like a grin-like look to it. And this is how I wanted to paint it. I originally imagined this painting it to go with the Skeleton Legion Builder. That figure you see on screen, that's a Skeleton Legion Builder from Reinforcements. Now, I'm going to do a whole video on how to paint a figure like that, but I'll give you a little sneak peek and I'll give you a little hint here. If you're looking at that and you're like, wow, that looks really good, I would love a figure like that. This is super easy to do. All this is some dry brushing. It's a couple different colors, and then it's the strategic use of some pieces. The chain around his neck is from Hagnon, but realistically, any chain would do. It's a piece of a Spawn figure tucked up under his shoulder to make that chainmail look like it's coming down, and a few different weapons. One which is Mythic Legions, one which is from Lord of the Rings. That and some paints, easy as pie. Now, the head, matching that head to the bones of the skeleton, that's definitely more challenging. This is a little bit of a harder one from the paint match perspective. Some of the ones we're going to do tonight are going to be a little bit easier than trying to paint match those skeleton bones. But that was the first version that we did. That was the first version that I had pictured doing. And I also said to Tristan, I said, you know what, I'd love to have not only the closed mouth one, but an open mouth one as well. So let me show that right here. And then I'm going to take a break from showing stuff, and we're going to actually do some painting, because I do want the paint to dry so I can paint a couple things throughout this show tonight. So this is the open mouth one, and it's meant to be the same kind of character, the same race or whatever, if you want to say that. But I wanted this one to have that open mouth, and it's probably tough to see in these photos. You probably can't see it, but he does have in that mouth, I mean, there's details in that mouth. There's that, I don't know what it's called, that punching bag thing that you have in the back of your throat there. Bear with me, I don't know what it's called, and I watched a lot of cartoons as a kid, so I think about it as the punching bag thing. That's part of the sculpture. Super, super cool, super fun to paint. You can see by zooming in the details on that head there. All of those wrinkles capture paint so well. Yeah, Nate's saying, love the open mouth version. So creepy. Nate, so photogenic as well. I mean, I know obviously you're a photographer. This thing just photographs like absolutely incredible. And so Tristan, the person who actually sculpted this, is one of the many people telling me that it's called in uvula. I can't even say that word. Uvula, whatever. Okay, let's see. Reminds me of Lovecraft ghouls. Yeah, I live in Rhode Island. This is Lovecraft country, so I totally Lovecraft. I get it. That absolutely. That's part of the inspiration here as well. Let's see. So creepy in a good way. McFly, not meant to be Nosferatu, meant to be a ghoul, but I do have a vampire version I'm going to show in a little bit. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Curtis. Very cool. Okay. So when I got this in, like I said, I had this idea that I wanted to paint it that way, but I wanted to paint it a couple different styles. So I'm going to do one right here. So one of the paint versions I haven't done yet, but I know would be cool, and a couple people asked me about this, was to do it on a goblin. Will saying, I knew the main accent would be stopped by uvu. How do you say it? Someone put it phonetically in the comments. Put that word phonetically, because I am having a mental block and I can't say it. I feel like Travis right now. So I'm going to paint this one to be a goblin. I think it would work really, really well. And I do have some other parts here that I'm going to paint a different way. And I totally just realized I did not bring my paint tray out here. Be right back. Totally unprofessional. Forgot my paint tray. So I'm going to make a couple greens here. A little bit of green. A little bit of yellow. Get a nice goblin green going. I'm just going to dry brush this on. I'm going to take my glasses off. My friend Len likes to say that whenever he tunes in and he sees me take the glasses off, that means there's some serious dry brushing happening. But super simple. I mean, just dry brushing this on, this sculpture has so much detail to it that it is absolutely just gonna, dry brushing is gonna capture all of those details, all of those deep pockets for the wrinkles and everything, catch all of those. Now, this is a trick that I'll tell you right here. This particular figure, I'm painting a Goblin Legion builder. So the only part on a Goblin Legion builder that is green already is the neck. So you have two options when you're going to paint to match this skin. You can either work to match that green neck, or you can take the easy way out, which is also in some circles known as the smart way, and you can just paint the darn neck too. That is what I'm going to do. Now, realistically, painting the neck is kind of cool anyway because it gives you a different overall look. You don't want all your goblins to have the exact same color skin. No variety if you do that. So the exact color that I'm going to use, and I painted it right in the body. You might want to pop it out. Otherwise, you might get some green on the body. My hands are steady enough that I don't necessarily need to do that. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint that neck using the same color green that I'm painting on the head, just to kind of cheat a little bit there. But we're all friends here, right? No, it's no good. It's not all good. No one's going to tell. And remember, as I've said dozens of times on the show, when you paint, when you dry brush, just being able to put it on lightly to build up those colors, it gets you the overall paint coverage that you want. It gives you a lot of control. It's a really smooth head when you get these in hand, and these will be available, by the way, this coming Saturday from LegionsShop.com. There will be unpainted versions available of both the open mouth and the closed mouth head. So if you look at this and you can see, I've painted over the teeth, I've painted over the eyes. Obviously, those aren't things that I want to be those colors. That's okay, because I'm going to paint over them after. I'm going to paint the real colors I want over them. This is something I've talked about in the past, thinking about your paints in terms of layers. So when you paint this stuff, you can't expect, especially when you're dry brushing. While I always say dry brushing gives you a lot of control, it does and it doesn't. It gives you a lot of control in terms of how thickly you put on the paint because you're doing it so little at a time. But it's incredibly imprecise. It's like using a shotgun, right? There's not a sniper rifle where you're painting very specific pieces. You're literally painting large areas and you're just kind of brushing on that paint in a very broad way. So you're going to hit those eyeballs. You're going to hit those teeth. It's unavoidable. That's okay. That's okay. Put that on, because after, that's the bottom layer. And then after, when I'm going to get more precise, I'm going to paint the eyes. I'm going to paint the teeth. So I'm going to put that aside for a bit. The other thing that I want to do tonight is I want to paint one kind of like a ghoulish grayish blue. That's a color I haven't used yet. So for that one, I'm actually going to do that with another Skeleton Legion builder. And what I did here was I actually pulled one apart. So if you get a Skeleton Legion builder, and I've done this many times, both with skeletons and with Hagnon, I pulled the entire thing apart. So the upper legs, I pull those apart. The upper arms. So the upper arms, I pull those apart, and the armor pieces that are on the arms, those are just glued in. They remove pretty easily. The thing you got to watch out for, sometimes you can just, get your finger under there, pull them, and it just literally pops right out. If you feel any kind of tension, just be careful, because you don't want to tear the plastic. I've only had that happen once, and I've done this dozens and dozens of times, but it's mindful, be mindful of that. The reason I pull that out is so, again, I want to be able to paint that armor, paint that arm without having to worry about going around the armor. It's actually something really similar to what we've been talking about lately at Four Horsemen Studios and some of the content we've been publishing about fine cuts. So if you saw the article we posted this week about the Cosmic Legion's fine cuts, one of the things we talked about is the factory will separate parts that are sent to them as solid pieces. They'll engineer them to be separate pieces, right? And that is oftentimes for ease of painting. So something like, say, for instance, the hooded, head on the Elf Legion builder, or the Elf Ranger figure, I should say. That's two different parts. The reason it's so great is two parts is because they can paint the head, they can paint the hood as separate pieces and then connect them without have to worrying about them being already connected. And, as you try to paint them, you're going to get some little paint bleed that's going to go from the face onto the hood, things like that. Same thing with this arm, right? If that armor was actually integrated as a solid part of the arm, they'd always have to paint around it to get the bone. The fact that it comes out makes painting both the armor and the arm so much easier. So let's do that as well. Let's leverage the same kind of thinking that they do at the factory to make it easier for them to paint, for us to paint as well. I do when I paint, and because this is an example that I'm going to paint the entire body. People always ask me, how do you deal with painting joints? I say I don't do it. I try to avoid it. This is a case where I'm not avoiding it. Now, I didn't prep these joints in any special way. I didn't sand them down. I just separated all these pieces and hit it with a nice light coat of black spray paint. So I did separate them because the lower arm and upper arm, if they're together, I won't be able to get certain pieces that touch. So once again, let's remove that. I do have a pair of hands from the hands pack. I want my ghoul to have bare hands. So I've got a pair of hands, I've got the neck piece, and then I do have the open mouth ghoul. And I've got something fun to show on the open mouth ghoul on tonight's show that I haven't shown yet. I want to take a pause here for a minute. I'm going to check some of the comments. Okay. I can't say it. Uvula. I've heard that word before. Uvula. Wow. We have found a word that I literally cannot say. Okay. Let's see. No, Eric, I wasn't searching for tonsils. I can say the word tonsils, thankfully. Glasses off, it's game time. Yep, there you go. Someone's talking about wet palettes. I don't use a wet palette. I know people talk about wet palettes. I've said many, many times that the way that I do things is not the only way. I just share what works for me. So wet palettes work for you, rock on. That's awesome. I'm sure I'll get to try it at some point. Tristan, are you going to put the tongue in the open mouth? Keeping that secret. This is like a PBS show with everyone giving live feedback. Yep. Okay. All right. So that's the other one I want to do. So I'm going to mix some colors here. And I've got like a light gray. So I'm going to start with that light gray. And I'm going to show you some other versions in a bit because I want these things to dry so I can do the eyes and stuff. And obviously, I won't finish this tonight, but I'll get at least a decent amount done, and I'll take pictures this week. So I'm going to try this deep sky blue. So light gray and deep sky blue. I didn't pre-mix any of this. Like I didn't do any paint tests before the show because I wanted to show you, exactly what I do when I'm in the back and I'm just messing around. I don't know what color I'm going to use. And that's why when people ask me when they're like, oh, I like that paint match that you did. What's your recipe? And I just say, I have no idea. It's not me not wanting to share information. I mean, hell, I look at how much information I share. I clearly have no problem doing so. It's that I literally just guess when I'm painting and I'm messing around. So this is like a really kind of grayish bluish color. I'm really digging that. I like that a lot. Dry off my brush here. I'm going to do the head first because that's the most important part to me here. A lot of the other parts are going to be covered up by armor and so forth. Make sure it's really nice and dry because I really just want to brush this on. The open mouth version is actually a little easier to paint than the closed mouth. Because with the closed mouth, and they're both fairly easy to paint, but with the closed mouth version, because the mouth is legit closed, the teeth interlock. So you got to paint all the individual teeth separately. And because they essentially touch, you just want to make sure that you get some definition. On the open mouth, because the teeth are literally all separate, they're so much easier to paint. Yeah, this is a cool color. I'm really digging this. This like bluish gray color right here. So dead looking. Love this. I know a lot of people, they use like the like chopsticks with paper towels on it, and they set everything up. I'm so not. I've never done that. It look like it's one of those things that I see other people do it. I see like Nikki do it, and I'm like, oh, that's so smart. I should do that. And then I just never do. I just hold it with my hands. So I'm just putting it on lightly, but I want to get nice coverage especially because this head is so incredibly smooth. I want to make sure I get this coverage on that nice smooth part. Now I can always come back and hit it with some later if I want, but I really want to maintain those details. Now, a lot more detail in the head. Like I said, the other pieces here aren't as critical to me, but I'm just taking them one at a time, and I'm just brushing this stuff on lightly. And this is, like I said, I'm cool. One of the great things about painting stuff like a ghoul is, dude, it's a ghoul. It lives in a graveyard. It just clawed up from a crypt or something. It doesn't have to be super clean. It doesn't have to be, the right leg and the left leg don't have to look perfectly alike because it's a ghoul. It's in a graveyard. It's dirty. It's dead. It's nasty. So much different than if you're trying to paint Templar knights, for instance. And I mean, that being said, yeah, Templars can be getting into it. They can be dirty. I've seen, Emil and Stephen paint their God's Fire figures, and they tend to not paint them clean. They tend to paint them with a lot of muck and a lot of dirt on them and stuff, to really look like they've been out there in the fray. So you can do that as well. But knights can also look really clean. A ghoul looking really super clean would probably be weird, which means I want to do it. Which means I totally want to do it. Because that's the other part of this as well. When we think about versatility, one of the things that I love about parts that are versatile, because I think about this now when I create parts. I think about, okay, how do I want to paint this? Like, how will this look cool? How am I going to present this for everyone to see, for it to be, if I'm creating a part that's going to be sold at Wolf King Customs, I'm thinking, okay, how do I want to paint this for that presentation, for those promo images? But I'm also thinking, what other ways could this be painted? I want to show people different options, different ideas, because if I paint something like this, like a vampire, there may be someone that doesn't really care for the ghoul look, but they love the Mythic Legions vampires. So the minute they see the vampire version, they're like, oh, I want that. Because it doesn't look like a ghoul, it looks like a crazy looking vamp. I like to think about those different versions, that different variety. That's I think really helpful. But even outside of the parts I create, right? When I work on parts from any of these other creators, if I get something from, Sabadom in Planetary Dog Toys, or, if I pick up, pieces from any of the Legion Shop artists, Tristan and Carlo that did, Mortal Collections did these. Recently, I got in their Oni heads. Their Oni heads, which are sold at LegionsShop. They're gorgeous, gorgeous pieces. They stole the show at Leo. They won the people that stole the show at LegionsCon last year with their ogre scale Oni heads. I talked them into doing them for 1.0 scale for LegionsShop, and they painted them up, and they're gorgeous, gorgeous pieces. But as soon as I got them in, I started thinking, how else can I present these? I want to do something different. And that's what I like about thinking about versatility. If everyone is painting a part to look a certain way, as cool as it is, the artist in me, the creator in me wants to think of an alternative. I want to say, like, okay, if everyone's presenting it like this, how can I do something unique? How can I do something different? And the reason I do that is because I love when other people do it. I love when my brain is thinking about a certain kind of presentation, and then I see a creator, I see a customizer get a part, either a part I've created or a part I've worked with, and their vision for it, the way that they see it, is totally different than how I do. That is super, super cool. As an artist myself, that gets me really, really excited. I've always liked different interpretations of the same part or the same thing. So I think that's super, super cool. This guy's pretty dry. Dry brushing dries incredibly quickly because you are putting on so little paint. So that's looking cool. So I'm going to get back to him in a few minutes as I just knock everything over. Cool. Okay. Could be an undead goblin as well. Absolutely. A ghoul on a skeleton body. Yep. Yeah, I prime the figures in Black Star. I have videos of this. I use a Krylon flat black that I just spray everything. I don't use primer per se, and I know I'm probably splitting hairs here because essentially what I'm doing by spraying a black base coat is priming them. But they do sell primer. I don't use it every time I've tried. It feels like tacky. So I've just swear by Krylon flat black paint. That's what I do. Jay, no, I'm painting ghouls and other weird things. I put blue tack on dollar rods. Will, yep, that works. Someone keeps asking me about metallics. I'm not ignoring your question. It's just not relevant to what I'm talking about right now. So I don't want to go off on a tangent about something that's totally unrelated to what I'm talking about. I'll be happy to answer that at a later date if I have time later tonight or whatever. So let me show you another version of the ghoul in the spirit of talking about variety, right? So this is one that I showed today. So I love painting figures. I love painting heads to match Scaphoid. Scaphoid, I've said this before, was a super sleeper figure for me because when it first came out years ago in Covenant of Shadow, I didn't love it. I was like, I don't need a green skeleton. And then when I got one in hand and I got one, I loved it. I loved the look. Of course, after that, I went out and got a bunch more. And now I think I have like 10 of them on display right now in different configurations. But something about this figure, the green and yellow bones, the purple tunic piece, the gold, dirty gold armor, it just all works together. So I love painting heads to match. I actually did a tutorial video on how I paint match to Scaphoid. That process is exactly what I did here. So if you check this out, these are both those heads, the open mouth version and the closed mouth version, using pretty much the same process. This is dry brushing on those greens and the yellows that I do for Scaphoid. I painted the teeth with a color called Buff, and then I painted the eyes that white. So those black eyes on the first one, I like the contrast here where you've got the white eyes on this one, but it's the same process where I painted the eyes white and then I used that gloss overlay just to get that really, really shiny type look. I did also put gloss on the teeth, and the open mouth one, I put gloss on the inside of the mouth so it has that wet look. But this is an example where if you look at the the bone version and you compare it to this version, they look distinctly different. They look like different characters completely. But I can take it a step further. Because I said the vampire version, so this is one I actually haven't shown yet. We're seeing it for the first time tonight here. Where the heck is it? And of course, I can't find it. So give me a moment and I will dig it out. Let's see. Bear with me while I find the photos. I thought I had them prepared, but apparently I am off my game today. There we go. All right, so I don't have these together, so I'll have to show them one at a time, but so this is what the vampire version looks like. And super simple. Painted that white color. This is just a Baron Valagar body with some shoulder pauldrons from a Carpathius, only because I wanted the smaller type look here. But just painted a white, dry brushing on all of the head to really get that coverage. And then if you actually look at the Carpathius figure, that's the figure that I was using as my base here. He's got a lot of pinks around his eyes and nose. So I dry brushed the pinks and, onto that area as well, along with the teeth to create that almost like vampiric looking ghoul. And I say ghoul because that's the name that I call the head. But this one here starts to look less ghoulish to me. And it literally starts to look more like just a weird vampire type creature. Very different nose structure than the vampires we've seen in Mythic Legion so far. But I think close enough that it totally works. And I can show you the open mouth version as well, since it's a vampire. So we want to see those fangs, right? So there's the open mouth version. But again, versatility, it's something I love because, again, I love to see different ideas. Let's see. Curtis, you're very welcome. So as a fellow customizer, I just want to say thank you, not only for your inspirational videos, but your willingness to help anyone that reaches out to you. You are very welcome. I genuinely enjoy doing it, and I like to talk about Legions. I like to talk about this stuff. I enjoy. I've never understood when people come into the Legions community and they tell me that in other communities, creators and people that know the tricks of the trade aren't as willing to share them. It always surprised me that that's a reality, that actually happens, because it just seems so natural to be open and sharing about this. And I've made so many good friends by sharing, and they've helped me just like I hope I've helped them. So it's weird, but you are very welcome, and thank you for those kind words. Let's see. Making names. Yeah, Star asking about the fur parts for like orc figures. I love that Northern Warrior. I love that too. I've done like a whole bunch of figures that have that very Arctic theme. I eat that stuff up. I love that. Okay, here. So ordering these to use as vampires. Yeah, I absolutely dig them as vampires. I think they look really cool as vampires. So all I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to this here for the goblin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my buff. So this is 976. And this is exactly what I would be doing if I was in my back room, just kind of painting for myself. So I'm going to get my really fine brush here. I just put the tiniest little bit of paint on the brush. And then what I'll do is I look at that character, that figure here, and I'm painting just the edges of those teeth. Now, one of the things I always tell people is this type of control, it comes with experience. And not that I don't slip up, I do it all the time. When you're painting something that's got dimensions, like the teeth actually protrude, right? Let the brush find the area you want to paint. Get it close there. You don't need to brush it on. You don't literally, the teeth are so small, you basically just need to touch the brush to the part and let the brush do the work for you. Okay? That's what you want to do. When you see new painters and their pieces just look like the paint is globbed on and you can see brush strokes, that's because they're working against the materials. They're trying too hard to literally brush the paint on. Small pieces like this, you don't even need to brush. Just barely touch it. The only parts here that I'm really going to brush are the long fangs. And even that, I basically touch and then just lightly drag my hand down. Just let that brush kind of caress the area. Now, it is a ghoul, so his teeth can be pretty gnarly looking. The sculpture itself is pretty gnarly looking to begin with. One thing too is if you have these really fine brushes and over time they start wearing out, they start really losing their shape, you may need to replace them because there's such small margin for error when you're painting these really fine areas that if you've got stray bristles on that brush and they're going outside of the area you're trying to paint, you're not going to be real thrilled with the results. So take care of your brushes, but don't be afraid to replace them. If that brush is looking tired, spend the money. And I've had people say that, well, that brush is $30 or whatever. You know, they don't want to invest in an expensive brush. When you're paying $15, $18, $20 for an unpainted head, think about that. Investing $30 in one brush so you don't mess up all of your $15 and $20, unpainted heads. That's probably a pretty good investment. It's got some teeth there. While I have this out, I am actually going to paint the other head. I want to paint the teeth on this other head as well. This buff color, by the way, I use this buff color for teeth all the time. It is my favorite one to use. And like I said, this open mouth version, it's even easier to paint than the closed mouth just because those teeth are they protrude so much. The only thing you do have to be careful of with the open mouth version is the teeth are very fragile. They're very, very tiny, very small, very fine. So you do just have to be careful with them, the way you hold them. I've broken a few of them. So this coming Saturday at the sale, we will have unpainted versions. We'll also have a handful, just a couple, of the bone-colored versions painted. We will also have some of the scaphoid versions painted. I did want to do some of the vampires, but I'm kind of running out of time. So I think the vampire versions might end up having to get bumped to a later. But of course, if you're watching my show, you're probably a customizer. A lot of people, not everyone that watches my show is, of course. And those who are not, you're welcome. Hopefully this is inspiring you to want to pick up a paintbrush. But if you do want to buy them unpainted, you can always paint your own vampires. Of all these different versions, the bone one, like I said, is the harder one only because if you're trying to match that bone, and let's be honest, the skeleton legion bone is a weird figure to match, partially because the bones and the head don't totally match super well on that figure. The head it's really dirty. So when you paint a skeleton legion builder, you have to decide, do I want to match the bones of the skeleton, or do I want to match the head? Because the head is dirtier. Looked great either way. The figure as is looks awesome. So it doesn't matter what you match, whether you match it to the head and the head looks a little bit dirtier than the bones, it's still going to look really, really cool. I'm super digging this color. So I'm going to show you a secret right now that I haven't shown yet, that I'm super excited about, that Tristan was talking about earlier. When I first talked to Tristan about doing this, one of the reasons I wanted the open mouth version was I wanted to put a tongue in it, right? So we talked about possibly sculpting a tongue, but I love using existing parts. So I came up with a couple ideas of cool things that you can do. So if you're a Marvel Legends collector and you have extra Venom figures, cutting out a Venom tongue and putting a Venom tongue in this mouth will totally work. Now, you don't have to. The mouth itself is totally detailed. Like I said, it's got the sculpture inside of it. You can leave it as is. All of the ones I've shown so far I haven't shown any tongue in it, but you could totally put one. The tongue that I imagined using, that I have right here, is actually from a Hellfire Goblin. So I had an extra Hellfire Goblin tongue, because if you've got a Hellfire Goblin, it's got two different heads, right? If you display the one with the closed mouth, or even if you display the open mouth with the short tongue, you'll have that extra tongue piece. Now, the tongue does not fit in perfectly. It's actually far too wide. This was one of the things that Tristan had said to me is, hey, the base of the tongue on the Hellfire Goblin is actually really big. The mouth on the ghoul, I can't make it large enough. Like, it's going to look unrealistic. It's going to look like the Bog Goblin, the Hellfire Goblin with that huge mouth. So I said, don't worry about it. I'll cut it. So what I did was I took a Hellfire Goblin tongue and I just took a sharp X-Acto blade and I just sliced it nice there. And now, while I don't have any glue on me yet, I'm going to bring this up to the camera so you can see what that kind of looks like with the tongue in the mouth. Come on. So that look right there, the tongue in that mouth, that's totally what I imagine. And when I'm done with this, that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to position it right like that. I'm trying to get it so it looks, there we go. I want to position it so that tongue is in that mouth. So he's got this just disgusting looking ghoulish tongue coming out of his mouth. So fun part, if you've got some fodder in your bins, extra Venom figures, extra Hellfire Goblins, I think that tongue's going to look really cool being just glued in there. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little dab of glue. I'm going to just glue it right in there. Super cool. Look at the comments here. And I'm going to show you another piece that I'm excited about that's coming out. So this is another figure that I showed, another custom that I showed this week. This is actually a head from Von Berg Studios. He calls it the rishi. It's R''SHI''R, which basically is like the Chinese word for 22, apparently. This is something Brian came up with, so I had nothing to do with this. The custom you see on screen here is totally mine, but Brian, the sculpture, this was not a partnership. This was 100% Brian. He reached out to me. Brian is, got his own successful Von Berg Studios, also is one of the LegionsShop artists, one of the original LegionsShop artists. So he reached out to me and he said, hey, I think I have a new part that I want to sell at LegionsShop. And I was thrilled to hear that. He said, I'm doing this kind of like mask, this like tiger mask for the Chinese New Year. And I think it'd be really kind of cool. So I said, that's great. I'm excited to see that. I love, these type of cultural pieces, these pieces that have, a foot in the real world, but you can add that fantasy spin to them. Always enjoy that. So he sent me this. And one of the things he said is, this is going to be a kind of head that is going to be super easy for people to paint, a little bit of dry brushing on this thing, and this is going to look great. And he was 100% right. I'm going to show an example in a few minutes where I just did some simple dry brushing to match like the Orc Legion builder from Reinforcements, that color, or some gloss black to match the Black Knight Legion builder. Both of those look super, super cool, and they're super easy. So in the spirit of me saying like, okay, if everyone's going to do X, I want to try Y. My first paint job on this was the one you see right here, which if you watched my live video from a few months ago, where I got All-Stars 4, I did an unboxing and I did a mashup that I had in my head that I wanted to mash up Vetus from All-Stars 4 with Magnus from the Irithyr wave. So Vetus, obviously, it's got that wonderful, reddish armor, but it's got the bare upper arms and upper legs. So I replaced those upper arms and upper legs with the gold armor from a Magnus to have that fully armored figure. And when I did it, I left Vetus's Mercurian helmet on. But I was looking at that figure that was in my case, and I said, you know what? I would love to match this head here to that color pattern, those golds and those reds, which were a bit of a challenge to match. Let me bring up a closer photo of that. So here's a closer photo of the piece. What I did here was, I worked to match that reddish metallic that you find on Vetus. I actually also painted the shoulder armor to match as well, because Vetus doesn't come with any shoulder armor. But this was totally different than what Brian had pictured. And when I sent this to Brian, he was really excited because this isn't what he pictured. So he was really thrilled about it. And it got me thinking of other ways that this could be painted. This is one that I cannot wait to see how people are going to paint it. Also available this coming weekend from LegionsShop. Let me show you some of the other options, some of the other ways that I did it. So this is more in line with what I think Brian was picturing. And one of the cool things is I really like this head because he imagined this as a group of 22 warriors. So the reason it's named after the number 22 is obviously we're in the year 2022. This is that new year, that Chinese New Year. So that was all important to Brian. He imagined this as a group of 22 very secretive warriors. So in my brain, I started thinking. I started saying, I don't have room to display 22 of these damn things. That was number one in my head, that I can't do that. So don't think that, Jeremy. I can imagine my friend Greg, who, by the way, who just Savage Collector, Big Greg, people know him a lot of different ways, just got out of the hospital. Super excited that he's on the mend. Great guy. I'm looking forward to seeing him in Jersey very soon. Greg, amazing displays. If you saw him on the Legion's Lounge show a few weeks ago, incredible displays. I could see Greg having all 22 of these things laid out. But here's a couple different ways that it could be painted, and I'll zoom in over here so you can see I painted, one to match the Orc Legion builder, really similar paint match to match Fury Clan Orc on the other side. Sir Gerard is in the middle there. I paint matched him, added some red to the teeth, and then, this one here, paint matching that with that glossy black with the red eyes to match the Black Knight Legion builder. Super easy to do. It's a part that paints really, really well, and it's a part, again, in the spirit of tonight's show, versatility. It's a part that you can paint lots of different ways, and they're all going to look cool. That is something that I think is really fun with these pieces. Being able to see how people do them, being able to get creative, being able to do multiple versions for yourself. I've always talked about the challenge of designing. When you design something, it's like you're solving a problem. So one of the great things is when you look at a part, you're almost solving a problem of how should this piece look? Like, what is my vision for this? And when you execute on that vision and you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, now I'm going to do that same part again, but totally differently. Different paint colors, different treatments on it, how I'm going to accessorize the figure, because that's a big part of this as well, right? Is, if you looked at that figure I just showed, the ones that I have on screen here are all very straightforward. These are just, that Fury Clan Orc, that Orc Legion builder, even that Sir Gerard, they are literally just the base figures with these custom heads on it. The Black Knight Legion builder, I just used 2 red belts and I gave him a cape, but in a different sword, but it's almost the same figure. So these are very lightly accessorized, customized from that perspective. But if you looked at the one that I showed a few minutes ago, a lot more heavily accessorized. It had, a skirt piece. If you looked at that ghoul skeleton I did at the start, where I gave him different weapons and I gave him the chain and I gave him the piece under his armor. Easy to do, but lots of different pieces that really change the overall silhouette, the overall look of a character. So those are all things that you can do as you do second and third versions of these pieces. Dig that a lot. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to paint the eyes on this. So this guy here, this is a goblin. Goblins have yellow eyes. So I'm going to paint his eyes yellow. My trick when I'm painting these eyes, especially big eyes like this, you want it to be super, super smooth, okay? The only advice I can give you is commit to it, okay? Get the paint on your brush. It's got to be pretty wet. Let that brush touch that eye, let that paint fill in, and just be very deliberate. But you don't want to, you don't want to go over the same spot multiple times. That's how you start to get brush strokes. That's how you just start to get streaks. The other thing is, if you paint and it starts to dry and you're like, I think it needs a little bit of paint, fight that urge. That's the way you start to get clumping, because you're painting wet paint on partially dry paint. That's when you'll get clumping and you won't get those nice, like super, super smooth eyeballs. To get those super smooth eyeballs, then you can put the gloss on top of, you've got to own it. You've got to just commit. So I'm going to put some yellow paint in there. Take my brush. And this brush, this has got a little bit of a bigger bristle on it. Got my paintbrush there, so I'm just going to go. I just tap it. So I literally just let that paint fill in. Just tap. I just let that paint, I barely brushed it. Look at that. It looks great. I tap the brush, and what's going to happen is the minute that wet paint hits that surface, it's just going to start to kind of expand and fill. Just moved it a little bit, and I've got that nice, smooth eye that I'm looking for. Here's one of the tricks as well. Black base coat, right? Glasses. Black base coat. Dry brushing the green on top of it. What's going to happen is kind of around the edges of the eyes, I go a little light around the eyes. Edges of the eyes retain some of that blackness, right? You don't get the full green filling it in. Then when you do this, you end up with like the green eyes with almost like a black ring around them. Looks super, super good. So that's my creepy looking goblin. Put it in front of my face. I will take better pictures of these for sure. Now this one here, I'm going to wipe off my yellow paint. This guy, I really think I want to go with the white eyes. Same thing. dabbing that paint. I'm just going to tap this and let the paint fill in. So this particular one feels a little thicker, so it's not filling as much. So I'm just going to dab a little bit more, get what I want. There we go. So this one will be a little bit more challenging because I'm going to have to put everything together, right? So I'm going to have to assemble everything. Now, I've said this before, these are painted parts. I love to use hot water when I pull apart Legions figures if they're unpainted. And when I say unpainted, I mean they're factory painted, they're not custom painted. I love to use hot water. However, once things are painted, I'm not going to use hot water. I'm going to use hot air. I find hot air to be less damaging potentially on custom paints. I don't have the armor for the Skeleton Legion builder in front of me, but I'm also going to paint that. I'm going to, that's super clean because it's, one color. It's a Legion builder. So I'm going to dirty that up. I'm going to use, all those effects that I used, dirt and rust and, oxidation, any of those effects. I'll figure that out as I start painting, but I will get to those to put this character together to get this like gray skinned ghoul. And then I'm going to glue in this tongue to have that look there. So kind of digging that. And you can see how easy this was. I mean, on the show tonight live, I literally painted 2 of these pieces. Now there's a lot of black on that still because I didn't do a full coverage, but I dig that. I like that look. It almost reminds me of like an animated type look. Did you see on the Cabal this week, someone posted they bought a Zazar head that someone had painted black and they were trying to strip the black paint off. And the way it stripped off, there were still like bold areas of black, but you could see blue shining through. And it had a real like animated type look for it. Super, super happy accident right there. Yep, looking good. I like it. His teeth are pretty grimy, but it works. Absolutely works. You could also do a wash. So if I wanted to, I could take some brown paint and really, really water it down, and I could dab some of that on the teeth to really get some dirt. I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to take a little bit of brown, got some flat brown here, cracking open my new paint. Put a little bit of brown. Very, very low. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a really small little brush, get a little bit of paint on it. Normally I would just add some water, but I don't have my faucet in front of me, so I'll just use this little bit of paint here. So really, really watered this down. And all I'm going to do with that paint there, that really watered down brown, is I'm just going to dab it right on his teeth. You can see it kind of goes right between the teeth, and it makes that really dirty look. And now I just wipe that right off. I just want to wipe off that excess. Gives it that dirty type look. Yeah, that looks good. And you can do this on other parts as well if you want to add just that little bit of brown to them. Bring out some of those additional details. The only thing I'm avoiding is those eyes. I don't want to get anywhere near those eyes I just painted. Those came out gorgeous. I'm going to let those dry for 24 hours, and I'm going to use that gloss overlay to get that look that I want there. There on his brow, tips of his ears. Cool. So if you are keeping score at home, I have now painted those ghoul heads 5 different ways. I painted it to match the bone color of the Skeleton Legion builder, which is what I had imagined first. I also had imagined this bluish version. So that was one that I wanted to do live here, but I've painted it to match Scaphoid. I've painted it to match a vampire. And those are 2 different reasons, 2 different ways. You know, one direction was saying, I have a base figure, Scaphoid. Let me paint it to match him and see how that looks. Another way was saying, like, hey, I think this head would work as a vampire. Let me paint it as a vampire and then find a body for it. So it can go either way. When you're thinking about these parts in different ways you can paint them, you can start with the base figure and paint it to match, or you can just paint the head cool and then say, okay, what am I going to put this on? I need to either find a base figure or make a base figure, put together other pieces that you're then going to paint to really be the base that that head lives on. So lots of ways you can do it. Goblin, lots of different ways, 5 different versions of the same head. I think they're all pretty cool. I mean, this is one of those heads. I'm going to have multiple of these in my display. The hardest part is figuring out which ones to display them with, because I really dig both the open and the closed mouth. Right now, like my vampire, my bone version, the Scaphoid, they're all, I chose one head for all of them. The other one is sitting right in front of them because I don't only want to have one. They both look so cool to me. So I'm going to check out the comments for a little while and see what everyone's talking about. So I'm going to scroll back a little bit. Okay, so that's when we were talking about the tongues. That's where I'm good. Yeah, I mean, I know you said it's like a foo dog head. I don't know. It looks very much like a foo dog head. Culturally, I'm not sure what a foo dog is, so I don't know if that's in line. I know it was supposed to be a tiger mask because it was based on the year of the tiger. I don't know if that's similar to a foo dog. That's a piece of the cultural information knowledge that I don't have right now, so I don't want to speak out of turn. Let's see. We need a split screen to see the process. I did that one night, Joe, where I literally had a camera set up here, but it requires a whole second computer, and it was a royal pain to try to coordinate. But at some point, eventually, I'm gonna invest in even more equipment to do stuff like that. No, Curtis, don't listen to Steven. Awesome. Tiger Dog, Will is saying. So I mean, Tiger Dog, it's meant to be a tiger. So it has a very foo dog look. So much so that if you look at the shot that I took, which I actually genuinely really like this photo, these 2 statues that are kind of out of frame that you see, those are actually foo dogs. Someone got me those as a gift some time ago. And I don't have a ton of uses. I'm going to move this. I don't have a ton of uses to use them in my photography, but whenever I do have an instance, I love to do so. So I did that here. So similar to a foo dog. It is 8:50 now. That is really what I wanted to cover. Thank you for indulging me this evening. This was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Just like I said, wanted to do a little bit of painting, talk about some customizing, talk about versatility, and show some of these cool parts that are going to be available at LegionsShop. I am so fortunate that I get to work with people like Tristan. I get to work with people like Brian, who put out parts like this. And we've got a lot of other cool stuff coming this weekend as well. Tomorrow, I've got a really fun piece that I'm going to show off that uses some accessories from Anthony at Toy Forge. And there's a lot of other great stuff coming this weekend as well, both restocks and brand new things. That's LegionsShop.com this Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. But before we go for this evening, I do have some time. So if you want to chat a little bit, hit me up in the comments and let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what you'd like to talk about. Awesome. I'm just looking at this guy now and I'm just thinking what I'm going to do next because I just threw him on a Goblin Legion Builder body. He does have, I grabbed this from the back room. I didn't even realize that he has a 1.0 skirt piece on. But I grabbed this and now I'm looking at him and I'm thinking how else I'm going to customize him to be this little creepy goblin dude. He looks great. Like I love that. Someone had asked me to make a goblin out of it, and now that I'm looking at it, I hadn't pictured that at first, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. I really like the ghoulish looking gray one. Okay. So Kurt is saying, what's the worst figure to vote for in All Stars 5 and why is it Azar? Um, so I can't even tell you if Azar is one of the options in this year. You will see. I don't want to talk much about All Stars 5 because the information for that is still pending. It will be out soon enough. And trust me, people will be talking about it. Trust me, they'll be talking about it. Yeah, Star saying it's difficult taking a brand new figure from the package and cutting into them or customizing them. They're awesome the way they are. I agree with you, Star, completely. I'm not someone that customizes because I think I can improve upon what the studio has done. I have all the figures in their standard formats in my cases as well. I like to do additional ones. So I'm fortunate that I'm able to get, more than one. Obviously, those who, budgets are tight. I get it. This is a luxury. Being able to collect toys is a luxury. So if you can afford, only one or only one set, customizing may not be in the cards. That's why fun stuff like popping and swapping or getting, Legion builders that are much less expensive and, popping pieces from those and swapping on different heads. That's why that's a fun option as well. Not everybody can get pieces that they can just, chop apart. But the only way that I can do it, Star, is because I also have another one. If I was down to one, I would leave it alone and I wouldn't sacrifice it because I agree they look awesome as is. Tristan, yeah, red is one color I haven't done. I haven't done red, but you're right. He could work great as an imp. Paint him red, paint the wings on a Malfar red as well, and you'd have a super awesome imp. That would absolutely. I've done an imp before, and that would be a great, great looking imp. That's a good one right there. That's a recipe right there, Tristan. That's a winner. Jay's saying I can't wait for All Stars 8. Okay, that's a little bit off, I would say. Cowabunga saying any custom samurai heads for sale. Wolf King had done a custom samurai skeleton, like a 3-part head, some time ago. It's not for sale currently on their site. Saba and Julie from Planetary Dog Toys. I think the shop is closed right now, but they open once a month. They have some that I wouldn't call them like they're not samurai in the very, very traditional sense, but they definitely have some that have an Asian feel to it that could be used as a more monstrous looking samurai. That I think that's pretty interesting. So they have some certainly that I think would work. Any idea when a brand new Fresh Wave might be announced? Yes, I have every idea when that would be announced, but I can't announce it. It'll be announced when it is time. So I guess what you can take from that comment is there are Fresh Waves that will be announced. I need to get a hedgehog. Nick, no, I haven't addressed this. That's a great question. Contrast paints or other crazy paints. I have not ever used those. Correct me if I'm wrong. Those are often Citadel paints, right? I see people talking all the time about all of these super cool color shift paints and contrast paints and everything. And I feel like I always see that they're Citadel. I don't use Citadel. I have used them and they're great paints. I just prefer Vallejo. So I've never used those. It's a great part of Customize. It's a great part of this is look at how much work I've done, and I have barely scratched the surface of the possibilities that are out there. So there are so much. Anyone who's customizing, getting into this, I've heard people sometimes say like, well, everyone's doing so much. It's like, what stones haven't been unturned? Trust me, there are stones that we haven't even thought about yet. There's so many possibilities out there between the combinations of parts, the custom pieces, and the paints. Just using unique paints in different ways can get incredibly new results. So it's a great point. Not my thing. I've never done it, but maybe one day I'll pick that up and try it out. Do I have any customs that got away from me and I've given up on? Yeah, I mean, I have customs that I finish and don't care for. Not so much as of late. As of late, I have more of a vision now. When I first started, there would be things that I would do that when I was done, whether it was the execution, some technical parts. Sometimes, the paint just didn't come out the way I wanted it to be. Early on, whenever I had to paint like realistic faces, like dwarves and stuff, they I there were a number of them. Actually, I can think of one right now. That first dwarf head that Emil did that was laughing, right? So he did a dwarf head that was kind of like laughing. It was really the first dwarf head that anyone had done that had more than a neutral expression, right? And it's certainly, I'm trying to think, there might have been one before that that had an angry expression, but it was certainly the first one I remember that had a laughing expression. So I saw that and I wanted to make that head into a moonshiner, a dwarven moonshiner. So I got like a whole moonshine kit from Anthony at Toy Forge. I got that head. I got the fat belly body from Saba. And I tried to paint all those pieces together and it looked like garbage. Like it got away from me. The paints, they wouldn't go on. I could not match the color paints. I couldn't get a realistic skin tone. Everything I was trying, the skin tone was like way too ghostly. It got away from me so much that I threw the head away. Like I took one picture of it that was so heavily, like the lighting and everything was so heavily doctored that you couldn't see the horrible job as badly as if you were just looking at it. I totally disassembled it and did something else with it. But yes, that was a while ago. But yes, I absolutely have had customs that got away from me that I moved on from. You can't do this amount of work and not have a swing and a miss sometimes. But you got to take those swings. That's what it's all about. What's after the fourth horseman? So what's after the Necronominus wave? Have to wait and see. Are there any figure ideas that you want to do but don't feel like you have the appropriate parts yet and are waiting to do? Yeah, I have tons of them. So I've done thief characters before, but the upcoming parts from the Alithia wave are going to be a game changer when it comes to that. So if you look across the Mythic Legions figures, all of the 1.0 figures have armored feet. Now we just got bare feet, but we don't have like leather booted feet. We won't have that until the Alithia wave. The Alithia wave is the first one. We've got it on 2.0, like the Elf Ranger and so forth. But Alithia is the first wave where we are going to get those leather feet. We're also going to get like leather armor and everything, lighter armor. So whenever I imagine a rogue character, a thief-like character, obviously they're not wearing, metal steel boots on their feet because they'd be not very stealthy with that. So while I've done thieves in the past, I feel like that whole set is going to open up a whole new world. Robed wizards. I mean, everyone wanted robed wizards in the Poxus wave because we've wanted to do those type of traditional wizards. And we haven't been able to do so. So being able to customize with that stuff, totally looking forward to that. Outside of Mythic, when we think about Cosmic, I mean, Cosmic is just getting started, obviously. We're just scratching the surface with that first wave. But I'm super, super excited for the idea of, mixing and matching those parts. I've been seeing a lot more like I started watching Arcane on, what was that, on Netflix. I just started like 2 episodes in, but that super like melding of magic and technology and science, love that stuff, that burnt earth, wasteland type stuff. I'm absolutely looking forward to being able to combine parts of Mythic and Cosmic to create some of those type of really gritty characters. So yes, to answer your question, there's lots of figures, lots of kinds of figures that I've wanted to do that I'm waiting for the Legions parts, because everything with the third party stuff is awesome, but there's a line, right? I'm not, I don't want to do full on bodies. I mean, number one, it breaks the rules that the studio has established for third party creators. So we don't want to break those rules. But additionally, there's limits in what you can do with the resin printed parts. These are great add-on to the Legions figures, but in no way do they replace the Legions figures for me, nor should they replace them for customizers. Legions have to be at the core of this. That's something that I truly believe. So I am absolutely waiting for some of these new body configurations, body parts to create some of these custom ideas. Okay. Let's see. So many plans for the Alithia wave, Joe. I cannot wait. As soon as I hear that truck is in, that is going to be the week that I'm at the studio that month. Absolutely. No, Rogue Wizards don't use a new body. They use both the Arazak and the Samir figure, which are 2.0 size, basically use like an Elf Legion builder style body. Their upper arms, the bare upper arms. Let's see. Yeah, Lizard Men from the Cosmic Legion stuff, absolutely. Nate, Steampunk Legions. Steampunk is like a very divisive, like a lot of people hate that style. I always thought it's cool. I really, really dig that steampunk style. So I guarantee you I'm gonna make some super steampunk stuff. My custom Goblin Gunzo, which is one of my most popular customs, that has a super steampunk feel to it, aviator cap type stuff. CB wants to do a steampunk line. I will back that. I work there now, so I can actually back Corn Point and say that's a cool idea. Let's see, Aquatic Legions. A lot of people have requested that. That's never been high on my list, right? I don't know why. I think it's cool, but I don't know. I don't really want fish people. Not the way I want everything else. Yep, steampunk can work with cosmic. Greg, probably not. They've got their own ideas. They're not looking for third party stuff to take and make. They're really focused on their own stuff. Trust me, there's no shortage of ideas officially. I agree, Joe. Let's get it done. Star saying, I hope Cosmic goes with a touch of cyberpunk on some characters. Not to give anything away, but I think that give Cosmic a few more waves and you're going to be like, wow, this universe is incredibly diverse. I think we're going to see some really different looking stuff, but you got to give it time to grow. And I've said this before. It's like if you start reading any story and you're like, oh, okay, it's feeling very, very same from chapter 1 to chapter 2. Like the beginning, they got to start building something before you can start exploring new worlds and exploring new pieces of it. So that first wave was setting the stage, going to build off of that. But talk to me when we're on like Cosmic Legions 4. When like the fourth wave has come out, we can really sit back here on the show and look at the diversity and say, like, okay, we're really starting to see Cosmerium and really how diverse a universe it is. Awesome. I didn't say there wouldn't be fish people. I just said I don't really care for it. Awesome. Scratch and sniff legions, Walter is saying. Shh, Joe. Yeah, if we get spaceships from Cosmic, I'm going to have to go and build an outdoor shed. Yeah, I'm not much of a vehicle guy. Like, I'll tell you. So I have a few Star Wars Black Series. I used to have a lot more. I've sold a lot of them. And I remember when they released the TIE Fighter for Black Series, right? Awesome. Like, I was super excited for it. I got it. It was a gorgeous piece. I've always liked the TIE Fighter. Like, if they had to do a Star Wars ship outside, I like Boba Fett. So yes, the slave one is cool. But the TIE Fighter would actually probably have been the ship I would have picked for them to make because it's so iconic. I had a TIE Fighter when I was a kid. It's got that nostalgia piece for it as well. I got that, and as cool as it was, I couldn't display it. It was so big, so big. So vehicles for 1/12 scale figures, it's problematic for me. Not that I wouldn't get it, not that I wouldn't want it, but I would probably get it and just not have room for it. As it is, I'm worried about where I'm going to put all this stuff. Awesome. So hoping for some more alien creatures. A lot of people are. Snowspeeder was another one. I love the Snowspeeder as well, Jay. That was growing up. Those were the two I had. I had a TIE Fighter. Actually, I had a Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. Now that I think about it, I had a Vader's TIE Fighter and I had a Snowspeeder. Those were like the two ships. I never owned an X-wing as a kid. I never had an AT-AT. Always wanted an AT-AT, AT-AT, whatever you want to say it. I never had one as a kid. My son has one because he wanted one when he was a kid, and I was like, "Hell's yeah, you're gonna get one of those," because I didn't get one when I was a kid. So I'm gonna fill that dream, and I'm gonna live vicariously through you. Awesome. I think Walter has done some painting before, some basic stuff. But awesome. So it is 9:08. I think I'm going to call it an evening tonight. And I actually will not be here next week. So I'm going to be traveling next week. I'm going to be a little busy getting ready for ZoloCon. So I will not be around. I thought about trying to do one from the studio, but the reality is I want to keep broadcast from the studio special. I don't want it to just be, oh, I happen to be in New Jersey, so I'm going to do the show from New Jersey. Did that right before Mythic weekend. I want to save it for times like that. So next week, I am going to take a week off. I will be back the following week. I guarantee I will be back here and we'll be talking about ZoloCon. And I have a feeling we'll have some other stuff to be talking about by that time as well. Until that point, I look forward to that conversation. Thank you all very much for joining me this evening. I will see you very, very soon. And with that, I will cue the outro music. Have a good night, everyone. Remember, Legion Shop sale this coming Saturday.